Southern Indiana is a beautiful, enchanting place, offering solitude and elbow room for the weary. If you want to leave the busy world behind, get some peace and quiet, this is the place to do it. During the Civil War, a young man from Kentucky did just that, but he became more than just an Indiana resident. He became the Wolfman of Versailles. The year was 1863, and Silas Shimmerhorn was a Confederate soldier. General John Hunt Morgan led a cavalry, and this meant that any new recruits had to bring their own horse. Like many young men in Kentucky, joining the Confederate Army was less about ideology. It was more about escaping their farms for high adventure. As most were very poor, this often meant selling their worldly possessions to buy a decent horse. But in a day without theme parks, video games, and internet, this was high entertainment. Some might even say, totally worth it. They would see the world outside their small farms, race horses across the countryside, and shoot guns, scarcely thinking that it could cost them their lives. But as some were so poor, it probably didn't even matter to them. If they died having a great time. On July 8th of 1863, Morgan's cavalry stole 2 steamboats at Brandenburg, Kentucky, and crossed the Ohio River. It was a bold raid, going all the way from Mockport to West Harrison, Indiana, before leaving the state. General Morgan was told not to invade Indiana, but did so anyway. This extremely long ride led to many hardships. It was a grueling cavalry ride. The men were in constant danger of Union forces. They had to steal fresh horses and food from civilians. The raiders lived like wanted men, outlaws that rode into town, burned down bridges, train depots, and stole items from local businesses, such as they did at Salem, Indiana. Some of these recruits, known as freebooters, would go into towns and steal things they didn't even need, just because they could. In the middle of summer, they stole ice skates, bird cages, and long spools of ribbon that they tied to their saddles. Perhaps it was all too much for Silas, and he deserted the raid by the time it got to Ripley County. Whether it was the fear of getting killed, going to prison, or just a guilty conscience for robbing innocent people, no one really knows. All we know is that he wanted out and took refuge in a cave, and at that point, a strange Indiana legend was born. In the 1800s, wild wolves still roamed the Indiana landscape. A pack of them came to the cave where Silas was staying, but instead of it ending badly, they accepted Silas as one of their own. Local people saw Silas running naked with the wolves as they raided farms for chickens and other livestock. Having lost a lot of animals in the night, farmers decided to take action. A group of men banded together and not only tracked them down, but killed every last one of them. These were some of the last wild wolves in Indiana. Silas was never seen again, and nobody knows what happened to him. He either fled the area and lived under a different name, or was killed by those same men. What still remains is the cave where he stayed at Versailles State Park, and some spooky stories that continue to this day. The cave used to be on park maps, but was removed at some point. For as long as anyone can remember, it's been known as Bat Cave. There's an easier way to get to it, but like always, I took the tougher one. If this is the cave, it's not all that impressive, and not very big. It's possible that it's been filled in to prevent people from going inside. But if this is it, this is where the Wolfman of Versailles lived for a time, befriending wolves and becoming one of the pack. Locals say that they found his rifle and a few clothes, but after the wolves were killed, those items disappeared. My guess? They've been passed down through generations since 1863. Why let a museum have it, just to stick it in a drawer? I will say that it's a peaceful place, and likely so back in 1863, when a young man decided he didn't want to be part of a war anymore. Over the years, some have said that the area is haunted. People have not only felt that they weren't alone, but also have been touched by an unseen hand. While others claim to have seen a naked man with a beard running around and howling before disappearing into thin air. But is there any truth to this tale? Did Silas simply lose his mind? Or did something supernatural happen in these woods? You can search online archives to find both Union and Confederate soldiers. I found a Shimmerhorn on the Union side, but none on the Confederate. It's possible that people got his name wrong. It's also possible that Silas was a simple farm boy that joined Morgan's raid as a freebooter and wasn't even recorded as a soldier. Many poor young men, some as young as 15 years old, joined up for adventure and lost their lives along the way. We have Confederate graves in Indiana in which their names are completely unknown. And their families never knew what happened to them. Today at Versailles State Park, you can hike to the Bat Cave. You can visit a shelter dedicated to Silas. We may never know the full truth about Silas Shimmerhorn, but the tale of the Wolfman of Versailles lives on. It's a legend that's been told and retold for over 160 years, making people question if they're truly alone when hiking the trails. Some say that on a moonlit night, if you're camping at Versailles State Park, you can still hear the faint sound of howling wolves and Silas, forever roaming the hills of Ripley County.